You're listening to The Coaching Divas, a podcast for everyone navigating the twists and turns of corporate life.
Follow along as we chat through common workplace situations and extend the coach approach to help you handle them with ease.
We offer a cross-sectional view that spans generations, positions, workplaces, and lifestyles.
We're your hosts,
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jespa, and we are
The Coaching Divas.
Welcome back to The Coaching Divas, the show where we swap burnout for breakthroughs and give you the tools to lead, live, and work with a little more intention and a lot more joy. Today, we're diving into a topic that feels both universal and deeply personal, changing the narrative for working mothers everywhere. And to help us do that, we have a truly magnetic guest. Someone who doesn't just stir the conversation, she elevates it. Joining us is Samantha Wallace, the founder of Remom, a coaching practice devoted to creating meaningful, necessary support for working mothers. If Remom had a mission statement in human form, it would be Samantha. Warm, energizing, and the kind of speaker who wakes you up like your favorite cup of coffee. Comforting, grounding, and just strong enough to make you sit up a little straighter. She's authentic, relatable, and deeply empowering. And today, she's here to share the pivotal moment that inspired Remom, the habits that help mothers reclaim their bandwidth, and the practical ways couples can rewrite their dynamic at home. We'll also explore maternity coaching, identity shifts, boundaries, guilt, self-care, myth-busting, and even a 7-day experiment you can start right after this episode. So buckle up, grab your beverage of choice, and get ready for an episode that just might change the way you think about motherhood, work, and everything in between. Samantha, welcome to The Coaching Divas.
Thank you, Coaching Divas. Feel free to call me Sam.
Deal.
So as we kick this off, tell us a bit about what is Remom and who is it for?
Sure. Remom stands in short for Reinventing Motherhood, and it's a maternity coaching and maternity strategy design company. So what that means is I work directly with mothers or corporations looking to support their working mothers and helping them find work-life harmony. That's essentially the crux of it. So very simply, work-life harmony is the foundation of what we offer. And what that allows women to do is apply themselves fully in all aspects of their life, whether it's in their career or personally, as a mother, as a spouse, or any other identity that you carry. That's what Remom's mission is to do, is to reinvent what motherhood looks, feels, and sounds like.
Wow. And what led you to create that?
It's a bit of a story, so I'll take you on a journey. I have 2 children. I've got an 11-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. So there's quite the age difference between them. There's almost 7 years. With my daughter, there was a tremendous amount of mental health support that was required as I adjusted to the motherhood identity. I found it personally really, really hard to be a mom, a working mom, and apply myself in a way that really felt good. What was happening, and we could talk a little bit more about this as we get deeper into the work that we offer, is essentially what we call identity integration or lack thereof. So essentially, I became a mom 11 years ago, didn't know how to integrate who this new identity of Sam was as a mother with the high achieving and admittedly perfectionist, high control type of individual I was in how I applied myself at work. It inevitably led me to burnout, so clinical burnout. What that taught me was there were different resources I needed to tap into that I didn't know existed at the time, such as therapy, coaching, self-help, that I needed, I guess, to support where I was in life to help me get through this hurdle that I felt was defined by becoming a mother. Fast forward to almost 7 years later, had my son, and the experience was radically different. I walked into the identity of motherhood of 2 with ease. It felt really joyful. It felt good and peaceful this time. And there was a point in time where my son was just about to approach 1 year old. And I had a moment where I thought to myself, why is it so different this time versus 7 years ago? And I had an aha moment where I realized that in the 7 years, and at that point, 8 years total, because my son was already almost 1, in the 8 years, there was a journey of mental health, self-help, coaching, and of course, my background from a day job corporate perspective of being a change specialist that also played a role into how I navigated my life. that helped me go from someone who was struggling with identity integration, challenges with becoming a mother, and challenging things like societal norms or belief systems that I didn't even know I carried, to the version I was now 7, almost 8 years later, where I was accepting it with ease. And I realized I had a formula that I could help other women with, that they didn't have to go through the pain, the trials and tribulations I went through for 7+ years. And so I got to work and I put pen down to paper and I thought to myself, well, what is it that I did? What did I do? And how can I turn this into something that I can help other mothers with? With the help of a business coach, I crafted Remom, as well as I went back to school to become a maternity coach. So maternity coach training does exist largely in the UK right now, but I'm happy to be one of the first to bring it here in Canada. And what maternity coach training is really centered around the navigation of leaving work, going on maternity leave, and reintegrating back into the workforce as a mother. There are aspects in traditional maternity coaching that I bring into Remom, but I would say Remom's focus is more on the work-life harmony from a holistic, feeling good standpoint for mothers that goes beyond just the work integration and reintegration piece. So with the help of maternity coaching and a business coach that refined all the different things I went through over 7, almost 8 years, to come out of becoming a new mother again in a very positive, comfortable way, I was able to produce a program and now multiple programs under the Remom brand that helps working mothers.
I'm curious, when you talk about harmony rather than balance, what does that look like for you? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's the number one thing that I start all of my engagements with, because it's the number one question. And traditionally, we hear about work-life balance, which, if you were to take it to an imagery perspective, you would think of a scale or a teeter-totter where you're balancing on one end all things life, which is funny to me because life is made up of so many different things. And then on the other side, work, right? And so there's an implied equality between the time, energy, and attention that you give those two different parts of your life. Harmony takes away that notion of equality in terms of time, energy, or attention, and instead puts at the root of it feeling good. So you are living in harmony if you can wake up every single day and say that you're feeling good. We call that at Remom a feel-good baseline amongst all of the different identities, responsibilities, and accountabilities that you carry as a human. Okay, so it takes away this notion that work is equal weight to everything else in your life. And instead, it challenges you to think, well, what is my mix? What is my blend of all the different ways that I participate in my life that actually feels good to me? And that looks different for absolutely everybody. For some women I work with, work carries more weight than any other responsibility, and that's okay too. So let's say work is 60 and life is 40. If that's what feels good to you and how you choose to participate in your life, then you found harmony in your definition. For other women, work is a lot less of a weight, and then life and all the different identities that life encompasses may weigh more. So really, it's not a formula. It's not a mathematical equation. It's not an implication of whether you could be in balance or not, because that's another thing with balance. You can take a look at someone visually on a list and say, hey, I'm in balance or I'm not in balance. There is no sort of mathematical validation that happens with harmony. It's essentially what feels good to me. And it allows you the opportunity to have that ebb and flow over time as well. You can shift it, you can change it. We might always be in a 9-to-5 working environment, but it doesn't mean that the weight of the 9-to-5 has to be the same this year, next year, or 10 years from now.
That's such a different way of looking at balance, is to reshape it into harmony. That's such a different mindset. I mean, even outside of, I would say, motherhood, like that's a concept I think anyone could really embrace, to, especially from a workplace. We say work-life balance. Imagine we said work-life harmony. That's,
I actually want to change it to life-work harmony.
Yes.
But the world is not ready for that either. I don't think. But give me a couple of years and I would love to shift, because even in the terminology itself, work-life balance, work-life harmony, work-life rhythm, work-life integration, however you want to talk about it, work is always first. Mm-hmm. And so I want to really be part of that movement to say, whoa, work is just a part of who you are and what you do. Not even it shouldn't even be the frontal part in my mind, unless you want it to be. Unless that's your harmony equation, then cool. You call it work-life harmony, work-life balance. But for me, it's life-work harmony. So eventually I'll get there.
I feel like eventually we'll just drop the work part It's all
Like
personal.
life.
harmony.
It's
It's just harmony. Yeah. Well, because it's part of your life, right? And to think that there's been so much emphasis, at least in the westernized worlds, to put work on a pedestal in the way that we have, it's, time to challenge it. And I'm happy to do that.
Question I have, because I've had two kids as well. And it's just such a shock, especially after the first one, because they don't come with a user manual. You don't know what the heck is going on, right? So how do you recognize that you're not in harmony? Like, how do you recognize this is not the new norm for me?
Yeah.
Is there any little telltale signs? I mean, especially when you first come home with the baby from the hospital, everything's in disarray, right? And so you need a little bit of time for the dust to settle.
Sure.
So how do you recognize that? This doesn't feel right, because you don't know how it should feel, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. We are talking more about like the parental instinct, or even just knowing how to care for a child. There's always
like I was just tired all the time.
Yeah.
And
I still am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question, Claudia.
Yeah.
The way I would answer that is, so I talk about feeling good, and some of the work that I talk about, it touches it on a very high level, and we're talking at that high level today, just for the sake of introducing what Remom does. But there's so many very deep layers that contribute to what that feeling good feels like. So to answer your question in terms of how do I know if I'm in harmony or not when I'm just overwhelmed with new motherhood and I have no idea what's going on, I'm trying to figure everything out every few minutes. What I would say first and foremost is, if you don't know what feeling good feels like, you have to figure that out. Because until you know what feeling good feels like, you will not know if you're off your feel good baseline. Now, if you haven't done that work and you've entered motherhood, then one of the things, and we will talk about this, and it's part of the 7-day challenge as well. One of the things that I always start with my clients and with anyone who talks to me about anything related to the feel good baseline and how they know is pay attention to what you're thinking. Pay attention to your thoughts, because your thoughts are an indicator of your belief systems, right? So beliefs are thoughts that you continuously think. So if, let's say, you're a new mother and you're finding yourself thinking, I should do this, I should have done that, I need to do this. The shoulds, the needs are very different than the I could, like what are you capable of, and the would, what do I want to do? So when you're in a mindset or have the wherewithal to pay attention to your thought processes, and you're thinking, I should do this, I should do that, the challenge I'm going to talk about in the 7 days, but also what I would ask every woman to do, whether you just had a baby or not, is when those should or need conversations play in your mind, challenge yourself to ask, well, why should I? Where is that story coming from? Do I believe in that? Is that true for me? Because let's put it back to the example you gave. As a new mother who just had a baby, you might feel like you should do newborn pics within 2 weeks. You should have visitors come. You should plan for a welcome party. You should have the house clean for the baby. You should have humidifiers running at all times. You should, have all the next 2, 4, 6, and 8 month vaccine appointments set up. Like, those should stories are going to play in your mind because you're in a state of just wanting to genuinely care for this child and also celebrate. But a lot of that too is, do you actually need to do that? Is that something you actually believe in? Is that something you want to be doing? If you were to shift the terminology in your head from the shoulds and needs to could and would it still align? If you were to say, I could do something versus I should do something, it's a very completely different way of holding yourself accountable. Because the could and would means, yes, if you say could, yes, I have the energetic mental capacity to do something. And the would is, yes, I would do that because I want to, because I believe in that. This requires deeper work that oftentimes we don't have I'm not going to say oftentimes, I'm going to say flat out, we just don't have the wherewithal to do when we've just had a baby. So the work really starts before, which is why maternity coaching is such an important support, because it starts from before the baby arrives.
What you've raised for me, so I don't have kids, but this notion of harmony and could and would, for me personally, really hits because I've been a caregiver before.
That's right.
And there is this, I don't like to use the word, but there's an alignment there.
Absolutely.
That even for someone like me is something I don't always pay attention to.
Yes.
And I went through a phase where I was really run down. And a big part of it was because, and I've talked about this publicly before, my fertility journey didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And that is a whole other challenge. But my God, had I been thinking about what harmony looks like rather than finding balance, I think it would have been a lot easier and simpler.
It would have felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
You probably could have done the same amount of work that you did back then too. And that's something that I always like to make clear is the way we approach things can make all the difference. So if you think, Daniela, of your caregiving responsibilities, your fertility journey, working full-time, and everything else that makes up Daniela at that time, chances are adopting a harmonious approach and outlook to life would still allow you to do every single one of those things, but in a way that feels better to you. So it's not about letting things go, right? So that's another notion of balance is if you take a look at work and life as if you're on a scale or you have to equalize your time and attention to everything, there's this implied notion that you got to let some things go in either parts of work and life. I challenge that and say absolutely not. You can in fact do more.
Because you don't want to let go. It's all important.
Yes. And it's a matter of allowing yourself to ebb and flow so that you can achieve more, right? So if one week you're doing more life stuff, less work stuff, and then the week after you're doing more work, less life, as long as you feel good week over week, it really doesn't affect how much you're actually able to contribute in the long run when you zoom out. I think oftentimes we are in such a microcosm of our life and we look at just like this current month. And it's like, well, did I do a good job this month balancing work and life? Well, really, it's not about that. It's about the value that you drive and what you achieve long-term overall, and whether it aligns with your values.
Harmony sounds like a muscle. It doesn't sound like something that you can achieve overnight. It sounds to me like it's something you constantly have to be working on and mindful of. And so my question is, what are habits or practices that help mothers create that harmony and consistency in the harmony?
Yeah. The first things I do when I work with clients is a values assessment. And that's a common coaching tool I know all three of you are super familiar with. But the reason we start with a values assessment is it gives us something to contrast our current harmony equation against. And it allows you to say, okay, if I value these 5 things in the way that I live my life, is the way that my life is set up today from a harmony perspective matching those values? Is it feeding those values? Is it contributing to those values? If not, then that's your opportunity to identify how can I rejig my harmony equation today or for the next week, month, whatever, pick your time frame to match my values more closely. So that's the first thing I do is help them identify what feels good. But the way we do that is lining it up to your values. Because at the end of the day, the way you spend your time, if it isn't aligned with what's valuable to you, it's never going to feel good. The second thing, and I mentioned it earlier, is the practice and the habit building of paying attention to your thoughts and challenging those thoughts. The more that we do that, the easier it is for us to walk away from something we felt we should have done or needed to do. And the more confidence we build over time in leading towards the coulds and the woulds. A lot of teachings I do in my coaching program is woven into the program itself about belief systems, cultural systems, societal norms that really influence the way we see motherhood and the way we see working motherhood in particular, which isn't spoken about enough in my opinion. So it's another reason why I do this work. And it just gives us the power. It empowers us to make that decision for ourselves, whether that's what we want our harmony to look like. And then the third thing I would say is first and foremost, after we do the values assessment, identifying what actually feels good to you. And the way that I ask my clients to do that is when you think of a day that you go to bed and it was a really good day, for whatever reason, it could have just been like things just felt really nice and flowy that day. You go to bed and you feel like that feeling of, yeah, everything happened the way I would have wanted it to happen without forcing, without pushing, without a tremendous amount of effort. That's what you should feel like all the time. And I know for women, it sounds wild. Like, no way, I have bad days all the time. But what I want to offer is you have the opportunity to choose things and the way that you think, the actions that precede those thoughts, and eventually the belief systems you reform around you because you're challenging your thoughts. That's your opportunity to have more of that feel-good feeling all the time. And that's what I call the feel-good baseline. So if you could operate on your feel-good baseline 80% of the time, I would say you're living in a very harmonious way. So one of the things that Remom teachings offer, and it's something that I drill into my clients' minds, is harmony is you making a choice that you can hold yourself accountable to that is rooted in feeling good. Those three things all together will inevitably change the way you approach your life, the harmony equation for yourself and for your home, because the home piece is a different type of harmony as well. It's when you start to engage partners and resources, and we can talk more about that. But inevitably, it reshapes your belief systems that you adhere to and aligns ultimately to your values.
So I do have a question. For someone that's expecting their first baby, what does maternity coaching look like?
Sure. Maternity coaching is a longer term relationship, and that's because it's designed to support pre-baby born to while on maternity leave to reintegration back into the workforce or back into society, however you define that. Not that you go in hiding or anything, but it's essentially applying yourself in a way that is outside of that very heavy child rearing phase that happens when we're on maternity leave. So in the Remom program, it's split out across 5 different sessions. The first session is before baby arrives, and ideally before you leave the workplace, if you are in a workplace situation, where we tackle things like fears, concerns, planning for leave, communication plan with your workplace, harmony in the home. So what does your harmony in the home, what is it going to look like when baby's here? We start to think about that in advance, because having that information in advance and having that tool ready just helps make that adjustment to motherhood a lot smoother when baby arrives. When baby's here, there's 2 sessions spread out across the term of maternity leave. So whether it's here in Canada, whether it's a 12-month or 18-month maternity leave, we'd find time twice where we check in. How are you feeling? What are the things that are going through your mind? And it's not about how to care for a child. I am not a parenting expert. I am a work-life harmony expert. So it's all geared towards the mother. Okay. It's not about the baby. It's what do you need? Are you feeling good? If you're not feeling good, what are ways we can help you feel good? Do you have any concerns about returning to work in a few months? Are you thinking of not returning to work? Let's explore that, because that happens quite a bit as well. And then if they want to return to work, we start to activate that keep in touch plan with the workplace. Okay. How can you stay relevant? What's going on in the workplace? How can you come back in a way that you can hit the ground running a little bit faster so you don't feel behind, and also you can battle the psychological impact of returning to the workplace and feeling like you've been gone for so long and are a bit of an outsider, because that's a very real thing as well when you reintegrate to the workplace. And then there are 2 more sessions for the actual reintegration of the workplace. So a plan on how to return to work. And then when you're in the seat at work, we'll do a check-in to say, how's it going? What are some tweaks we can make? How are things feeling across home and work?
That sounds like a big shift in identity throughout the entire journey. When I think some people could manage it better. I think high achievers probably would be the most challenged in that shift in identity. But how can someone who is struggling with that shift manage where their career output no longer defines who they are? It's the shift of now becoming a parent.
Yeah. So that was the exact challenge I had personally, which led me to turn Remom into an actual business. And it's not so much the how. I would start with the why. And the why is that identity integration piece, or the lack thereof, in that space. I don't think we talk enough as a society about the very real changes that happen to women after having a child and returning into the workplace. You're going to have limited mental capacity, limited energy, limited physical time. Okay. In spaces at the workplace where maybe you are able to work 16-hour days and it's not a problem, you can likely no longer do that. The only way you can is if you have a harmony equation in place that supports that desire for you, which is why maternity coaching is so important, because it starts before you leave. But if you're in a situation where you never heard of maternity coaching, you're going back to work and you're like, holy cow, this is not at all me. Why do I feel different? Why can't I think the same? I can't do the things I used to do or work as long as I used to. And if you define success with those things, you're really going to struggle, because you're no longer able to do those things anymore. So it starts with acceptance. We must accept that if we don't have a harmony equation in place to comfortably apply ourselves in that way anymore when you return to the workplace, and your mental capacity, time, energy is now spent elsewhere outside of work, you must accept that that is your new identity that you are stepping back into the workplace with. Then that is the indication and the time for you to do a values assessment again. Reevaluate. What are your values? What are your values in the workplace and how you contribute to the workplace? And redefine how you can continue to do that with this new identity, knowing that you have limited time, energy, mental capacity to do so. It's hard work, and it's often something that we can't do on our own. And so I would say seek a therapist, seek a coach, seek maternity coaching, and ask for help from your workplace. What are ways that your workplace can support you? Which is another way that Remom is actively working to shift the narrative around working motherhood. Is I do a lot of work actually directly with corporations who are looking to change the way the maternity return looks like for their returners.
Is it fair to say then for high achievers, one of the big work they have to do on themselves is that they may have to reset what achieving looks like?
Yeah.
And to understand that it's not a permanent shift, it's a just for now shift. Because while you're trying to find your harmony, the energy you have, as a working mom with young children versus older children is different.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that, okay, maybe I'm a high achiever. I was sitting in all the leadership meetings. I was the key contributor. You know what? Maybe now that, again, physically you've changed, hormonally you've changed, emotionally, mentally you've changed. Maybe for me, my expectations just have to lower a little bit. And I could sit there for 6 months, a year, but then I could raise myself up again because I'm not the same person I was pre-child.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to be a different person as my family situation changes as well.
That's right.
And I think that's hard for a lot of people to accept that I can't hit, that top bar as I did before.
You're absolutely right. There is a reevaluation of what success means, but that's really hard to challenge because if you define success with those markers of being at the right tables, working extra long hours, making a big impact in that way, to suddenly not be able to do that, it feels like you're failing or you're missing the mark, which is why the definition of harmony becomes even more important. Because if you can feel good amongst all aspects of your life, not just work, what does that mix look like? How do you feel good? You're less likely to be hard on yourself about missing the bar. And I'm using air quotes for people that can't see me, but missing the bar in terms of what your success looks like. Because now you're looking at success holistically across all of you and not just in the workplace. So the work that let's say example wise for Remom, the work that I do with my clients is you may feel like you're coming short at work. Okay. You're coming up short. You're not meeting those markers of success that you're used to holding yourself to. But how are you meeting or exceeding success in other parts of your life? And holistically, are you able to take a step back and say, I feel really good about this? If you can't take a step back and say, I feel really good about this, this is where we challenge you. If so much of your life satisfaction comes from work, what are ways that you can put more of yourself into work and less on the other pieces of your life so that you do feel good? Is it enabling external resources? Is it getting your spouse or partner to, activating them to do more in the house? Is it removing your default parent status, which is huge for me personally, because I'm all about breaking down societal norms, especially in 2025. Is it, meal services? Is it eating frozen foods 4 days a week and letting yourself do that without feeling the mom guilt? What are ways that we can pour more of yourself into the pieces that feel good, work or not, so that you can holistically take a step back and say, yeah, this feels really good to me right now.
Yeah. I have so many questions now. When we talk about success, a lot of people define success as career momentum.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most common feelings that women have pre-maternity leave is, okay, what's going to happen to my career momentum while I'm on leave? What would you say to listeners who are ruminating and dealing with those thoughts right now?
I like to use visuals. I feel like visuals are a very universal method of communicating an impactful message. And a visual that I like to use is the life timeline. Have you guys ever done the life timeline exercise? Where you map out all of your life's milestones on a timeline and you take a step back. It allows you to zoom out and take a zoomed out lens, I guess, on life. And you quickly realize how small these blips of time are. Okay. So I think being able to see that for yourself just gives you the confidence that you're not behind. Like, who are you comparing yourself to even? You're not behind, right? An example I can give is I worked with a client who felt like she was so far behind, and she was in a sales job, and sales gigs are incredibly hard to get back into because chances are they backfill you with someone. And then if they're off to the races and making numbers, you might not get that job back, and they find different positions for you. And it can be really challenging. And she was comparing herself to a gentleman on the team who didn't have to take maternity leave or paternity leave. And he was just, upward trajectory off to the races, doing really, really well. And she said, I'm coming back, and he was down here. And when I came back 12 months later, he ended up here. And I just feel like I'm so far behind from someone who would have been more junior to me. And I said to her, I'm like, well, if that's true, you're assuming that they're on the same trajectory every single day for the rest of their lives. How realistic is that expectation, though? Every single person is going to have a plateau at some point. Every single person is going to hit a rough spot at some point. We're holding ourselves against these ideals that don't actually exist. And so being able to zoom out and take a look at that, it's a good wake-up call to be like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm fine. This is not even a pause. This is just literally me taking on a whole other identity and taking care of other aspects of my life a little bit more than work, if that's what you choose, right? If that's not what you want to choose and you want that hockey stick trajectory, cool, go for it. We will find other ways to harmonize the other parts of your life. But success is what you define it to be. And someone else's success should never be your definition of success.
But that's so hard to let
go.
It is. You have to give yourself permission.
Correct. But I'm the permission slip.
Which is powerful, because I'm thinking to some of my friends that were, I've a lot of my different friends that have had kids. Some of them were definitely high achievers. Some of them, once they became moms, they're like, I'm just comfortable with this.
Yeah.
But then there was that judgment too of like, you were the one that wanted to blah, 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 blah. And,
sure.
And I know that they feel that judgment because in some of the circles that they're a part of, there is that statement that was made, especially as they have their second kid. Well, when do you plan on getting your career back on track?
Yeah.
I remember someone asking that question, and for me, it was a very uncomfortable statement to make it at the Christmas party. I'll say it that way. But there are those comments, those judgment calls that get made. So do you see a need to support them as well in that notion of harmony? And what does that look like?
That's the should and the need versus the could and the would. That's a perfect example. Other people are always going to impose the shoulds and the needs on you. That's where the shoulds and needs come from, is outside of you. Think about it. If you say to yourself, I should get back on track with my career. I should be this type of mother. I should put a hot meal on the table every night. I should be the one going to my kids' recitals every time. I should be the one doing all the dentist appointments and doctor's appointments. Okay, but where is that coming from? Where is that belief coming from? Think about it. Is it ever from inside of you? So what I'm asking is pay attention to where those narratives are coming from, because they're going to be outside of you. My job is to empower you, children or not, career or not, empower you to feel comfortable with the decisions you make about the coulds and the woulds in your life. Because it's the choices you make that you hold yourself accountable to that are rooted in feeling good that define your harmony, right?
Right. And for our listeners, that signifies, and I'm just going to say both male and female, there is that lesson that you need to apply in all facets of your life.
Which is why it's harmony, and it's not just work. Yes, work is a big part of it, because I think that's where still today in 2025 we struggle. But, give it 100 years from now, crossing my fingers, the Remom legacy will live on to generations. Maybe my daughter will want to pick this up one day. Who knows? But, again, the shift in narrative of life, work harmony, or even just dropping to work, like Nisha said, and just saying life harmony, like that would be a space where I think everyone would be healthy in terms of how they're feeling about their worlds.
Yeah. And the one thing going back to your shoulds and your coulds, the one thing I always reminded myself, and even because I've got older daughters now, is that whenever they start to compare themselves against other people, saying, I should do this, I should do that, my comment to them is that you don't know what their journey looks like. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So don't say I should do this or I should do that, or I need to, compete with my male counterpart in the sales position. You don't know what's going on for that individual. Maybe they don't have a home life, and so they can spend all this time here. Have your own journey, and don't don't do the comparison. I know it's hard to say that, especially with all these external influences we have with culture, social media, the neighborhood mom group who seems to have that perfect mom someplace, somewhere. You don't know what's going on behind the background. So to your point, really just focus on yourself. But it is really, really hard.
It is. But the one thing I would say, though, is that contrast is really important because it teaches us what we want. So if you see, let's use your neighborhood Facebook mom group example. If you see someone living a life that you really admire, if that's something you want to include in your harmony, you have the opportunity to do that too. And I think that that's the important part about being human and seeing different experiences is it teaches you what you like and what you don't like. My job is to teach you that you can do that for yourself too. You can make different choices that you can hold yourself accountable to so that you feel good in a way that looks closer to that, because maybe that will make you feel better than you do today. And that's okay. That's where I think comparison is healthy, when you know that that's something you want. But comparison becomes unhealthy when it feels like you don't have a real solid reason that you buy into for why you should or need to do something. Does that make sense?
That's a great way to put it.
I think it's healthy. It gives us a really nice way to admire each other and love on each other in that way, is to see how other people are living and be like, I really like that. And that's okay for me to like that. And it's okay for me to move and shift my life to be a little bit more like that. I think that's really fun.
I agree, because it's a modeling, and it's a healthy way of modeling, right?
Yeah.
Because I need to get back into my health kick, right? Of working out and being more consistent. And it's not a should and a need. And so I just want to feel more powerful.
I give permission to women too who are ultra high achievers. So the type of clientele I attract mostly are women in leadership. And I think the reason why I attract women in leadership is, and I talk about this a lot when I do public speaking spots or when I do workshops with corporations, is oftentimes the age at which women's careers start to take off. So they rise above middle management, they go towards directorship, VP, so on, is the same age that we start to have families, okay, in today's world. And so you hit this crux where it becomes a very difficult place to just be, because you're trying to move in an upward trajectory in two completely supposedly opposing ways. And so the clientele I tend to attract are women in leadership positions. And what I like to always say is I offer them permission. So again, it's that notion of being the permission slip, which I want other women to be permission slips for each other. That's the type of world I hope we live in at some point. But happy to be the permission slip to the high achiever to say, if that's what you want, if you want to beeline it to C-suite or whatever your goal is, then do it. Your job is to adjust the rest of your life so that it creates harmony in a way that you don't feel guilty and in a way that feels good. So let me be your permission slip to spend 80% of your time working and have a nanny or your spouse do everything else. And you feel genuinely good about that because that's what you want. And that's what you could do. I don't think we see that enough. I think we guilt each other like crazy to be like, oh, what do you mean you don't go to your kids' recitals all the time? Or what do you mean you don't cook? Or what do you mean you don't clean? There's so much guilting of each other rather than uplifting what we actually want.
Fake competition comes up for me.
Yeah.
The idea of, well, I find time to do meal planning and have all those meals ready for my kids for the week.
Yeah.
And I was able to get to the meeting at 7 a.m. and stay till 9 p.m. And I was able to drop my kids off. My nanny dropped them off at swimming, but I picked them up, and we had a really great drive home, as Mommy shared. Sorry, I've seen that narrative, and that's why I struggle. And as I'm kind of repeating, and that was 15 years ago, but I've seen that actual story come out from somebody, and I went, that to me, even at the time, was like, how did you do it?
But what are the supports they have in place so that the harmony in their life allows them to do that? I think the question then isn't how did you do it, or like a skepticism, I would say. I would say that the question we should be asking is, well, what do you have in your place to allow you to do that? Because I would love to learn that too. If that's what you want.
I love that.
If that's what you want.
But that's such a lovely way to ask and have an invitation to have that conversation.
Yeah. Like the how do you do it sometimes is laced with that skepticism or that judgment or that negative tone. I would love to see that. How do you do that shift to more like, teach me? What are you doing so that you feel so good that you can do all that? Where do you get the energy from? How do you activate other people in your life so that they can support you, whether it's in-laws or your parents or your spouse or nannies and whatever. It doesn't matter who or what it is. Like frozen meals, I brought that up, like why do we feel so guilty about feeding our kids a frozen lasagna twice a week? Like why? They're being fed. If that means that, I don't have to race home to be home by 5:30 so I can cook a proper dinner that's on the table by 7, then why not take that opportunity if you'd rather be working, right? Again, it's the permission slip.
We've talked a lot about, or touched on at least, support and support networks.
Yeah.
And I know you had mentioned, finding more of the external support in either a maternity coach or therapy or things like that. When we think of our inner circle of a spouse, a partner, in-laws, your parents, things like that, how do you engage that inner circle of support to find and define your harmony?
Yeah, that's where Harmony School comes in. So Harmony School is one of the newer off Remov. And that's where we take the woman and her support systems, whether it's a spouse, a partner, maybe it's a mother, someone who is a part of your house, running the household, like whoever you live with. And it's a collective coaching opportunity. And what we do in Harmony School is we literally examine. So first we start with values always, but rather than individual values, we talk about the household values. What's important for the house to run smoothly and feel good for all members of the people in the house, okay? Maybe it's waking up and not having each other yell at each other before school. Maybe it's having a hot meal together every single night, no phones, no TV, right? Like what are the family values? And then we do an actual assessment of the harmony in the home. So every single task, the common tasks, cooking, cleaning, doctor's appointments, walking the dog, shoveling snow, raking leaves, everything that has to happen to take care of a house and the people within the house. So school drop off and pick up, packing lunches, down to who picks up the phone call when the school calls, like down to that level of granularity. And we talk about how often does this happen? How important is this task? And who does it? And then when you map that out visually, I talked earlier about how I like to be visual because it's like a universal language for everyone involved in the home. You put it on a chart, a bar graph, and what you can see oftentimes is a very glaringly obvious default parent comes out of it, okay? Most of the time it's going to be mom, where it's like, holy cow, mom has all these bars everywhere and everyone else in the house has like a really minuscule amount of bars. That is the opportunity to say, number one, how does this picture line up with the family values? Okay. And maybe it lines up really well, but at what cost? So let's say you are having the quiet mornings, the peaceful mornings before school. Let's say you are having the hot dinners around the table every night, but at what cost to mom? Okay. Or it could be a situation where the graph or the bar chart is so different from what the family values are. And either way, it's a conversation starter. So I like to call this harmony assessment a conversation tool because it starts a conversation with all contributing parts of a family to readjust the harmony in the home. And that can include your children. So I'll give you an example. My 11-year-old daughter, she's now responsible for vacuuming and sweeping every Saturday morning, without doubt. She does all of the dishwashing of the plastic items. I still don't trust her with like the sharp stuff with knives and things like that. That'll come. But plastic, like, bowls and cups that the kids use, she's responsible for washing those every Saturday and Sunday night. And she does get an incentive, like she's incentivized to do it. We give her a little bit of money for her piggy bank or her bank account. But those things are taken care of as part of our harmony equation. Because mommy doesn't have to sweep or vacuum or wash plastic dishes. Daddy doesn't have to vacuum or sweep or wash plastic dishes. Now it's Sage's turn to do that. So you can have absolutely every single person, if you have in-laws that live with you, how do they contribute to the harmony in the home? And how does that home harmony equation align to the values of the household? So it very much is a communication tool. It's also an activity that requires scheduling and practice, because the premise of the Harmony School is you do the assessment, you adjust what the harmony equation looks like, but then the job, the hard work, is you put on a schedule who's now doing what according to what your new home harmony equation looks like. And you do that for 3 months in order to build automatic habits. Because the goal is to alleviate the mental load on the default parent so that they don't even have to think about things happening anymore. They don't have to ask, they don't have to nag, they don't have to follow up. It just happens. So I call it automating the home. So you have your values, you have your home harmony equation, and then you have the automation of the home. And then everyone feels a lot better.
Yeah. That's great, because I know for a fact it does not happen organically.
No,
It does
no,
not
doesn't.
happen organically. As much as you think that, oh, we all know how the home should function, they don't.
No.
And so having that conversation is really, really critical and really, really important to put the right practices in place.
Yeah.
Absolutely for that. Because I did something similar once my daughters got a little bit older. They would do the meal prep, right? So they would chop the vegetables. I wouldn't let them touch the meat. Meat was always a little finicky for me, but chop
I get it.
vegetables, set tables,
Yeah.
make sure the counters were cleaned off. And they would even make their own lunches for school the next day. Of course, I was always quality control because my daughter believed banana bread was a fruit.
It's not, Claudia?
But they learn. And they actually, believe it or not, really start enjoying being part of the equation going forward, right? And they get some pride out of it as well.
Well, the reason why it's so important too is think about what it sets up for them in terms of their expectations of a home in the future. So the next generation, if they participate in this way in the home, they bring to their own homes when they're mature adults that expectation of harmony in the home.
Yeah.
And so this is how you make changes generationally, is you start them young and you get them in practice of that mindset and that attention to the energy of a home, because the energy of a home is so important. If the energy is based off of mom doing absolutely everything, chances are it's not going to feel that great.
Right.
In that house, right?
Yeah, sure.
To shift our gears a little bit, I'd love to do a bit of a lightning round of mythbusters or little quips that come up. And I mean, you tell us what your quick take is on it. So the first one is sometimes, moms will say, if I can't do it all, I'm failing.
My first instinct is to say, what's all? What is all? How are you defining all? And how do you know you've done it all? And I think just asking that question very quickly helps you realize, like, oh, I don't even have a definition of what that threshold is for when I will be satisfied. Because if you don't know what your threshold is for when you are satisfied with what you're contributing to, guess what? You're going to keep contributing and you're never going to feel satisfied. So it really, my instinct is, well, what's all? How do you define it? And chances are when you put pen to paper and you have a crisp definition of all, I can bet that these women are doing more than that. They're already achieving that. It's the and then some that they need to get rid of.
What about this one? Equity or harmony equation at home just means 50-50 between mom and dad.
Absolutely not. I would say, and this is definitely what I teach in the home harmony piece or the harmony school piece, is harmony in the home is not a mathematical equation, just like it's not a mathematical equation for individuals. It's what works for the family and what feels good, taking into consideration time, energy, capacity, availability, and preference. Give you an example. My husband will not clean a bathroom because he thinks it's absolutely vile and disgusting. I have no problems cleaning a bathroom. So as part of our harmony equation, I do the bathrooms and he will never. Okay. Are there other things he picks up that I would never do? Like I would never mow the lawn? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that it's tit for tat 50-50. It literally is, if this feels good to the home and contributing to the home in a way that everyone gets to benefit, then you've achieved harmony. If we can be able to work with each other without having a tit for tat mentality, then you're better off as a family, because chances are you're never going to have an equal split equation between everyone in the household for who does what. It's just not realistic. Does it mean, though, that it gives us permission for other people to take on more than the mom does so that we can remove the default parenting equation being aligned to mom? Yeah, absolutely it does. Maybe dad's a lot better and has more availability and is better skilled at 80% of the things in the home, and we just never talked about it. And maybe we never employed that before. I'll give you a great example. My husband is a fabulous cook, but I did the cooking for most of the time in our household. Why? Until we were able to take a step back. And he actually enjoys it. That's another thing. Like, he enjoys cooking. So when we were able to take a step back and really assess how we're able to contribute in ways we like to contribute, you might be very pleasantly surprised as to what your harmony equation looks like. So it isn't a math equation at all. Not at all.
Taking help means I'm less of a mom.
Oh, this one is so deeply rooted in the shoulds and the needs conversation. It's less, first things first, less than who? Who are you comparing yourself to? Like, what ideal are you buying into that you feel you're coming up short against? And let's break that down. Let's take that apart. Let's analyze that. I would also say that this is very deeply layered with perfectionism and control. So the inability to take help is an indicator that if, you might feel like if you're not doing it, someone else won't do it right. Or if you're not a part of something, you won't no, and that makes you deeply uncomfortable. So it really is, there's so many layers to that. It's your belief systems, it's your values, it's perfectionism and control. But again, the ability to take a step back and look at holistically what that's doing to you and the impact it has to you and your harmony, hopefully will help you realize that it's worth relinquishing control and trusting others to support you so that you can feel better. Because if we were to do an experiment and say, okay, you keep doing absolutely everything that feeds your perfectionism and control, take how you feel. Like if you were really to do like an analysis, take how you feel, you can rate it on a survey, whatever, versus what does it feel like to actually get the support you need in a way, of course that's going to be uncomfortable at first, but to get the support that you need in a way that you can apply yourself in the way you wish to apply yourself in all aspects of your life, guess which one is probably going to feel a lot better to you. But that work of perfectionism and control and undoing that is usually deeply rooted in something more psychological or belief system or cultural norm related.
Last one. My employer can't do anything about this.
How do you know that? If you don't ask, how do you know? Some of the greatest wins that my clients have had has been just out of a simple question to their employer. Hey, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, can I leave a little bit early because my kid has swim classes? We don't give ourselves that power enough to ask for what we need from our employers. Also, I mentioned this earlier, Remom's work is to help employers strategize maternity support in these ways. So I'm hoping to make more of a dent in that over time. But one thing we are all able to do, but often don't take the opportunity to do, is just ask for what you want and what you need. And part of maternity coaching, I mentioned that the maternity coaching journey spans from before leave to during leave to after leave. At the before leave and the reintegration back into the workforce stages, that's where your employer is actually part of the conversation. Where we say before leave, well, what's your keep in touch plan with your employer? Is your employer bought in? How do they like to be communicated? Are you going to have quarterly meetings with them? Or are you going to have a monthly email? Or are you going to still be CC'd on town hall communications? What are the ways that you stay in touch? And then for the reintegration piece, that's where we talk about what are the things that you need for returning? What are the ways that your employer can meet that? Maybe it's a gradual return to work. Maybe it's a solid onboarding plan. Oh, you'd be surprised. Most organizations don't have a re-onboarding plan for returners because they assume you're just going to jump right in and remember what to do 18 months later. So maybe it's as simple as, can I have an onboarding plan? Let's put one together for my return so that I can meet certain milestones so you know that I'm on track. It's just like a new employee that starts. You have your 30, 60, 90. Why don't we do that for returners? Very simple. We all know how to do that. So a lot of the time it's just asking for what you need and us just not. We make assumptions. We make assumptions that maybe employers can't do certain things, but maybe we just haven't asked.
That's such a powerful statement. It's about time we found our voices and asked.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? They'd say no. And then you reevaluate your harmony equation and whether that role is aligned to your values.
Yeah, because you might come across and say, oh, that's rejection, but it isn't, right? It is. And I love that alignment. It's back to what does my harmony equation say? I'm going to start bringing that into my own conversations. What does my harmony equation say today about my work, right? And where I'm at? Because that's a satisfaction meter.
It is. It really is. And I don't think we pay enough attention to that. And take away the whole motherhood piece, even though that is my niche and who I support, anyone can benefit from that mindset. When I do workshops for corporations, men are at the table too. And a lot of them have these aha moments where they're like, oh my gosh, I never even stopped to think about whether I feel good or not. I'm just running off adrenaline and running through the motions every day, not even questioning, right? And I think it's incredibly valuable to be able to do that for yourself. And we deserve it. We deserve it.
So because we always like to keep our listeners a little bit on their toes, what's a 7-day experiment our listeners can try right now?
It's super simple, but it's every time, and it's paying attention to your thoughts, which does take some work. So it's simple in terms of the work to be done from like a physical standpoint, but it's going to be challenging if you're not in the habit of doing this already. And it's paying attention to your thoughts. And when a should or a need to conversation exists in your mind, you write it down. And then the work that you would have to do at the end of every day is for each could statement or need statement that you wrote down, you'd examine where did that come from? Okay, where is that story coming from? Do I believe in it? And does it fit in my values? When you do this, I'd say longer than 7 days, but 7 days is a great start. When you do this, it gives you the opportunity to assess whether or not your belief systems are actually aligned with what you want in life and aligned with your values. And that empowers you to make different decisions.
Yep. That reflection exercise.
Amazing. So thank you so much, Sam. Such an interesting and fascinating conversation. We could talk a lot more about this. I know for a fact we could. But, just to kind of wrap things up, I'm going to ask Danielle and Misha takeaways that they have, I'll add, and I'll let you have the last word as we sign off.
Claudia, do you have any takeaways?
Oh, I always do. I would say certainly the biggest one for me is to find harmony. It's not an organic process. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to fall on your lap. It does take effort and some work and conversations with the whole family and the extended family as to what harmony looks like for you. Having gone through it, I had no qualms at all about getting outside help because I knew I couldn't do it all. And, being tired is not fun because your best self doesn't show up. So make sure you have that conversation. Make sure you have that little bit of a structure and kind of, check in every few months to say, you know what, it's working, it's not working. You need to find that balance again and get that harmony back in the household. Because when it's not there, everyone feels it. You think you're harding, but you're not. Everyone feels when it's unharmonious, for sure.
The other thing that comes up for me as I've listened to this whole conversation is this completely aligns to everything that we always talk about in each episode. Where is your reflection practice at? How are you feeling? Tune into where you're at. And now I have a new word for it. What's your harmony look like?
That's my biggest takeaway. The way you've articulated balance versus harmony, I never connected the dots of how mathematical balance as a word implies and then makes you think of all the things in your life of fitting into quadrants and percentages or things like that. And so that shift in thinking to harmony is, I think, probably my biggest takeaway. My second biggest takeaway is, as somebody who does plan to have children in the coming years, I definitely need Remom on that journey.
Give her that plug. Well, that's great. Thank you.
Sam?
Any closing words, Sam?
Closing words, I would say we deserve to feel harmony. I have a manifesto that I share with all of my clients. And the gist of it really is we deserve this. Whether or not you can buy into that immediately, I think at the end of the day, if we can get to a place where whether maybe it'll take a few permission slips from myself or from other people, or maybe it takes burnout or hitting a real low for you to discover that. At some point, I would want every single working mother to identify with the statement that you deserve a harmonious life.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sam.
Thanks for listening to The Coaching Divas. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at The Coaching Divas.
Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our podcast.
Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would love it.
Until next time, we are
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jethba, The Coaching Divas.
If you're going to coach, might as well coach like a diva.